Precise.
Because we have the backup of the motel well.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Okay. So moving on to utilities then. These are just based on projections of, you know, what we've observed at our electrical meters and our propane, and so we, you know, we project out what it's going to cost to operate the district the following year. And in 2012 we adopted a budget of $99,200, and in 2013 we think it's going to cost more like $119,697.
Yeah, propane's going up, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the increase in cell phones, from $7,000 increase?
Let's see.
Where are cell phones?
Office cell phones.
That's all
Just
phones, that's
additional-
office phones and cell phones.
Office and
Office and
cell.
cell phones, we budgeted $7,000 in 2012, we're
Just-
budgeting $8,000 in 2013. So, go ahead, Lindsay.
I think part of that too was we, you know, 2011 was higher than the 7,000, but during our budget meetings with Stephen, we found some where things had been coded and we have reclassed things. So one budget had been running over, where this budget hadn't been fully utilized. So seeing after you move that and projecting it out, that's why we moved it to the 8,000.
Okay, thanks.
We also have a couple of additional people too, don't we, from what we had before, so that probably added a little bit of cost.
5 total cell phones. However, we have seen an overall reduction from Verizon because of the government discount that they give us. So we're still studying the cell phones, radios,
What works best? Yeah.
texting, that whole thing. We're really trying to look at what's the most effective effective way to operate. So.
Well, I have a recommendation if you want to look at. I would look at Page Plus. There's
What?
I've never
Page
heard of
Plus.
them.
They use Verizon's towers, and they're about 30 or 40% cheaper. And the service is the same because they're using the same tower.
But you can only call between 2 and 3 in the morning.
No.
What do you call it?
My secret.
That's who's been texting me in the middle of the day.
To be honest, I don't know how to text. Confession time.
Great.
That's not on camera, is it?
Yeah.
So, well 18, we're just going to have to live with that figure. There's no way to bring the electric down.
There may be a very minute refinements in
Okay.
the management
That's-
strategy
thank
on
you.
the electrical end.
Sure.
But
Excuse me, thank you.
when we upgraded the service to that level, that put us into a whole nother category.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, just curious, I think.
You're allergic to budgets.
I hate budgets.
No, it's well 18.
Yeah. Secrets out.
Okay, so moving on, page 4. Payroll. We are budgeting $408,638, and that includes all amounts from, you know, everything we discussed at the last meeting. And it segregates out the summer help.
Okay.
Any questions on the payroll? And then we wouldn't have any, in the enterprise fund at least, we would have no debt payments hitting that fund. So our total expenditures in the enterprise fund would be $881,435. And then some other things I want to point out is that we're trying to start looking toward having an operational reserve amount. So a savings account, hopefully, but if we have to use it, we have to use it. And that's that $75,000 that we set aside this year, and hopefully we can use that for a strategy for future planning. And then we anticipate a transfer from the general fund of $230,000, and so those are additional expenditures of $305,000. Or wait a minute, is that a okay, that's a transfer from
The revenue.
okay, so that's really a revenue. So the total other is 305. Okay. The ending fund balance would be $156,785. Questions? Okay, moving on to the debt fund. We expect, in 2013, we expect to start the year with $135,073. The AOS revenue, we're budgeting $232,633. We have that negative amount, which is an anticipation of an amount that wouldn't be collected in that budget year, and that's $30,000. And then a transfer from the general fund of $189,081 to give us total revenue of $391,814. The expenditures would be the trustee fees, the independent third party that manages the debt payments, the bank charges of $40, and then our principal and interest. We have interest on our CWR PDA loan of $26,331. We have principal on that same loan of $68,969, and then our bond interest of $263,250 for total expenditures of $359,590. That would be the amount that would require appropriation. And then we have an ending fund balance of $167,292. Questions on the debt?
The AOS assumes the increase that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's $10 per year, right, Lindsay?
Yeah, that's what we, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, $10 per year.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for the capital projects fund, we think that we'll start the year with $1,137,208. We earn a little bit of interest on that money, maybe $1,500. We also have a capital cost reimbursement revenue that's due from White Tool Mountain on a line extension agreement that we have with them of $2,757. So our revenues would be $4,257, but the total funds available $1,141,465. Our expenses we're anticipating are the water rights acquisition of $800,000, some water rights legal costs of $11,348. Our green project of $206,000, the hydraulic modeling of $24,700, SCADA improvements of $36,000.
Oh, you have it in two
Places?
spots.
How come?
Because I was starting to cry for a minute. I was starting to get all bubbled up and upset. Because there's a bottom one.
Yeah, we've got a
And
duplication.
it wasn't in there, and I was like, oh man.
Oh no, and I was rejoicing.
So you got it in there.
It's in there.
It's in
Wow.
there.
And I don't have to raise my voice or anything.
No, have another cookie.
I wish you
Have
would.
another cookie.
Did you say there's a duplication?
No,
Yeah.
no, no.
No, there are two line items with hydraulic modeling.
Oh, okay.
He was getting upset.
One says hydraulic model, one says hydraulic modeling. We've already incurred some costs under the hydraulic model, so we should move the modeling cost of $24,700 down to the lower one.
I will do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have an $18,417 contingency. There's still a lot up in the air with the capital projects because we have to finish some of the improvements that we're making now to some of the transfer stations. And the SCADA, that might be done this year, but we budgeted for next year, and we'll just see how it all shakes out. And hopefully we can get some resolution as to how things are going to proceed. I mean, we've got a lot of money set aside for things, and we're not done yet. So.
Yeah.
So we're actually budgeting for Kyle's.
Kyle's.
It's
my deal.
It's Kyle's modeling.
And I was going to say, and then Martin's proposal too. So
What's your proposal?
SCADA improvements. So they're actually in the budget.
It's in this budget. We also have a capital tracking sheet, and I'm happy we can go over all that too, but where we identify our current priorities and stuff, and that's in both places. We currently, I think we need to finish some of the things we're doing before we start to address these other budget priorities.
On hold.
Yeah. Right.
So although yours is in,
So I still
The
have to,
foot's in the door.
I still have to press it, but.
If the door's a little bit
You have to
open, maybe
cry a
kick
little bit
it.
harder.
Whining helps.
So, any other questions on the proposed budget?
That's good.
good work, well done.
Yes, thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, so with that, Vicki, would you like to go ahead and open up the public hearing?
Yes, at this point, we will open up the public hearing to those seated. Does anyone have any questions or comments over what you've heard? Yes, Michael,
I'd like
please.
to know what the green project and what
Yes.
SCADA or SCADA is.
SCADA, You say tomato.
Right.
Well, let me explain the green project and Stephen will explain the SCADA.
Okay.
So, with regard to the green project, the district was, it's obligated, or was formerly obligated, I guess it still is, to pay fines for wastewater violations from the past. And we worked for a couple of years to try to negotiate the best possible scenario for the district. When we did our bond issuance, those fines were hanging over our head, and actually we couldn't issue the bonds until we had assurance from the health department that the fines would not exceed a certain amount. The health
This is prior
department,
to 2008.
yeah. So the health department, that is the violations occurred prior to 2008. The health department agreed to cap those fines at $250,000. At that time, we were seeking a bond issuance. The lender said, okay, based on that assurance, we'll go ahead and issue the bond so that you can fix all your infrastructure. The problem was we had to address these repairs to fix the issues that were causing the wastewater violations, and so we were stuck in a catch-22. We couldn't get a loan because we had a fine. So finally, the health department said, okay, we won't let this fine go over a certain amount because it's calculated based on the period of non-compliance. So we had to get through the construction to end that period of non-compliance. So we've done that. We ended the period of non-compliance. The health department, we met with them and we said, what are our options for paying this fine? They told us that in lieu of actually paying money to the health department solely to fund their fine, that we could actually put the money back into the district. But we had to build a project that met certain criteria, and that's a green project. So what we're constructing is a reed bed, which is, it would actually, when it's finally completed, which would be in about 5 years, it would be a couple of cells of reeds in a constructed concrete bed, and wastewater effluent would be processed in a natural way through these reed beds. Over several years, it would move from one cell to another. And, or I think I got that wrong. We would fill up one cell and then fill up another cell. And then finally what we end up with at the end of this process is an organic grade A compost that's suitable for the community to use or to give away or whatever, but we don't have to pay to then dispose of that, which is very expensive. It's like $20,000 last year we paid to dispose.
But it's non-toxic.
Could you even sell the compost?
Yeah. I mean, as long as there's a market for it, it is very high-grade compost, and so it's just going through this green and natural process.
We could sell it for you.
Okay. Another thing to note on that too, as what AJ said, originally they agreed to cap it at $250,000, and they actually came in saying it's $108.
Yeah,
$106,000,
Oh, that's good.
which was huge. But then if we, rather than giving them $106,000, we can do this project that benefits the community, but the project has to be 2 times the cost of what that $106,000 is. So it's not a dollar for dollar kind of thing. Well, this happens to be a project that's at least 2 times the amount of what the fine is. So it works out well for us to keep that money here in the community and use it for something that we need to do anyway, rather than just sending them a check for these funds. And to kind of emphasize how big of a deal this is that our fines were $60,000 a day. It's $10,000 per violation per facility. So it was $60,000 per day for several years. It could have been millions of dollars. It could have bankrupted this district. So when we, met with them and kind of explained all of the issues that we were dealing with, getting them to cap it at 250 was a huge victory in and of itself, and then having them come in and assess it, at half, more than half that was kind of another cherry on top. And then now having them allow us to use it within the community is just, it's huge.
So we can reinvest it.
Yeah.
So, and I was just
Great work, team.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is just emphasize how much we go to Jennifer and AJ for working this out for us,
Yeah.
right from the start.
Right from the very beginning.
Okay, now, so Stephen had told me about the reed bed project many, many months ago. And so I thought it was something new because it was referred to as Kyle's Green Project.
Hey, I don't want to.
His name is in
I've been fighting for the hydraulic model.
See how the water flows through.
The hydraulic model can help us target the areas that need fixed, that are leaking.
Oh, okay.
And
Leak improvements.